What is your single favorite thing about coaching football at Penn State?
The players, we got great guys at Penn State in our locker room. We've had great guys historically, guys that are in it for the right reasons, blue collar, hard nose, appreciative.
You've got the second longest tenure in the Big Ten. Guys turn over a ton nowadays. What have you learned about being successful in such a tough league?
Yeah, it's a place that's got really high expectations and standards, and we embrace those expectations and standards. Great league, make the argument, best league in college football, or at least part of that argument. And obviously, you better be ready week in and week out. And you look at what Coach Ferentz has been able to do at Iowa. It's crazy. The success that he's been able to have and the consistency. And I think, that's something that we're trying to kind of look at that model at Penn State, but then also, be able to do some things that, other teams in our conferences have been able to do in terms of consistently competing for conference championships and national championships.
What's the hardest part about coaching at Penn State?
I think it's the combination of being able to respect and show the level of appreciation for our history and tradition, but also making sure that we were moving the program ahead into more of a current college football program. And that was probably more of my first 4 to 5 years. That was probably the biggest challenge.
You've got Drew Allar coming back, one of the few teams that has continuity at quarterback. What kind of advantage or difference maker can that be for you this year?
Well, I just think whenever you have a guy that goes from their first year as a starting quarterback in the Big Ten to year two, you're expecting a significant jump. And you're talking about a guy who I think broke the national record for completions without an interception to start his career. It was like 315. His touchdown to interception ratio is number 2 in the country. So there's a ton of really good stuff to build on. But obviously that's what the whole offseason's been about. But having that returning quarterback and a guy that did some really good things obviously is a great building block to use as your foundation.
What specifically would you like to see out of him in year 2?
I think for Penn State, whether it's our program as a whole or whether it's Drew, it's making sure that we're playing our very best when our best is needed against the best teams in our conference and in the biggest moments. I mean, you think at Penn State, we've pretty much consistently won 10, 11 games a year, and people are pissed, and that's the nature of being at Penn State. But we need to take that next step, and we need to do it against the best teams in the biggest moments.
Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, both back. One of the best running back duos in the country this year. How big of an emphasis is the run game? Like, where do you find the balance between the run and the pass, knowing you have those two guys?
Well, I think the big thing is we're going to run the ball, which we actually think the ability to run the ball, force people to add an extra guy into the box will create some really advantageous throwing situations. But whether it's run or pass, we need to be more explosive. That's what we got to do. We got to create more big plays, which that was a challenge for us last year.
All right, so defense last year played extremely well. It was elite. You had Manny Diaz running it. He's out the door. You bring in Tom Allen. What have you seen from his approach when it comes to the players and his approach when it comes to philosophy?
Well, he's a relationship-based leader, number one, which aligns with our program, so that was helpful. Then I think the other thing is just spending a ton of time. I think there's a ton of value in the fact that Tom didn't need to take the job. So he really wanted to spend the time to make sure that we were a good fit for him, and we wanted to make sure that he was a good fit for us, not just culturally and philosophically, but also scheme-wise. Like, we're a 4-down attack front defense. I wanted him to be able to come and spend time and say, okay, what doesn't need to change, and then what do we need to tweak so that he's going to be comfortable. It's, that was important for us. As well as we played on defense and as well as we played as a program, we didn't really want to start over, especially in that phase.
What challenges do the 4 new teams bring?
Well, I think number one, they're talented teams. You're talking about 4 teams that are extremely talented, that have recruited well. and obviously just programs. They're programs that have the recognition to really put the Big Ten on a whole nother level and a whole nother scale, coast to coast. But I think the other thing, as we all know, is travel. And especially when you're one of the most Northeast teams in the Big Ten, and we don't have an international airport. As you know, it's not the easiest place to get into and get out of. That creates more challenges for us. So making sure that we're strategic. We spend a ton of time on that in the offseason, talking to NFL organizations, talking to colleges that have done it. Because you look at the record in the NFL or in college football of East Coast teams traveling west, you better have a plan because the records are challenging.
Recruiting class of 2021. A lot of expectations, a lot of hype around that class. There are veteran players in your program right now. What have their conversations been like in terms of their approach to this season?
Yeah, again, Penn State's a place where year in and year out, there's really high expectations and standards. So those things I don't think have changed. I think, to your point, I think that's more external conversation and noise. Our guys are approaching it like they approach it every single year. We got a really challenging game to open the season on the road at West Virginia, which will be a hornet's nest. I played there plenty of times. It's a prideful program and a prideful state. So we're approaching it like we always do and trying to learn from some of the things last year that we need to get better at.
Tyler Warren, just as a player, what does he mean to your team?
Well, he's one of these guys that's earned the right to speak up to anybody. And everybody respects the guy. Consistency, he's a football player. You look at him as a tight end. As you know, it's hard to find true tight ends anymore that not only want to make plays in the passing game, but then are also willing to do the dirty work and stick their nose in there. And he's a guy that could have played tight end in the 80s, 90s, and today. But he's a multifaceted athlete. He played quarterback in high school. We played some Wildcat quarterback with him in the past. He can hurt you in the passing game, and you're going to respect him in the run game. So those guys are extremely valuable because as a defense, when you can say a tight end is really just a wide out, you treat him as such. But when you got a guy that can line up out wide or connect to the tackle, now that creates real challenges and real mismatches.
All right, let's talk about the 12-team playoff here. And you just mentioned, right, consistent 10, 11 wins, and you've been on the outside looking in. What opportunity do you see with the expanded playoff format now?
Well, everybody says if you look at the 12-team playoff, we probably would have been the team affected most nationally by this new model. So that's in the past, and that's great. That gives us some things to kind of be aware of moving forward. But our expectation is to play well enough that we have a bye week 1 or a home game in Beaver Stadium. So it's not just getting into the playoffs, it's getting into the playoffs in an advantageous position that'll allow us to thrive. And a bye helps, but also bringing somebody into Beaver Stadium that time of year I think would also be a huge advantage.
One of the things that came with conference realignment was the elimination of divisions in the Big Ten. And, a lot of conversation has been had about, if you're Penn State, if you're Ohio State, if you're Michigan, you don't have to see all of the top dogs from the East year in and year out. What was your reaction when you kind of saw the opportunity to not have such a top-heavy schedule with some of the other East powers?
Well, we got USC, so it's like we still got a really challenging schedule. Scheduling is important. It's funny, I remember forever discussions with the head coaches, and the conference. Oh, well, it balances out if you look at it historically, but that never really happened. But again, for us, we're going to embrace the teams that we got on our schedule, and going to West Virginia, playing Ohio State at our place. We got Washington, coming for the whiteout. We got to go to USC and play in the Coliseum. So, we're just really excited about these opportunities. And as you know, as a big-time player and a big-time competitor, that's what you want. And that's why you coach at Penn State, and that's why you choose to play at Penn State, to compete against the best day in and day out in practice, but also to compete against the best week in and week out on Saturdays in different stadiums all over the country.